Hey girl, I'm so glad that you're joining this week on the podcast. I have such a special guest for you today. We are diving into the mental health and mentality side of the balanced momtality. So, mindset is a huge thing to me. And I know I talk about mindset with my patients, and it really is what inspired the backbone of my practice, the balanced momtality, just because that mentality piece, that mindset is a game changer and it can make or break us. And sometimes that's the piece we need to work on the most, especially when all of the other tactics, the practical skills, the diet, the exercise, all the things you're doing aren't working. It might be your mindset. And if you're not sure, tune in to today's episode where I'm going to dive in with Ashley Fillmore a lot more. Ashley is a leading expert in sustainable weight loss. She helps women heal their metabolism, balance their hormones, and achieve body composition changes that last a lifetime. Ashley has a bachelor's in science in exercise and nutrition and is a certified personal trainer, professional nutrition coach, and health educator with nearly 20 years of experience. Ashley is the host of the Cheers to Your Success podcast and the founder and president of Metabolic Fix, a premium online coaching community that's helped thousands of women finally break free from chronic dieting and achieve long-term sustainable results with the Metabolic Fix Method. She is deeply committed to helping women better their lives and strive to inspire others to embrace the life of health, happiness, and self-love they deserve. She is such a kind spirit. She is so fun to chat with, and I know we could just chat for days. So I hope that you find this episode helpful and is just a fun conversation to get you thinking more about the inner workings of your thoughts and your brain and how it might be impacting your progress and success. So can't wait for you to hear it. Let's just dive right in with Ashley. Hey, I'm your host, Dr. Desiree Cassell. I'm an orthopedic and pelvic floor physical therapist specializing in women's health, aka pelvic floor. I'm a wife, mom of 3, foodie, lover of all things movement and nature, and I'm super passionate about educating, empowering, and supporting other women like you to find and maintain balance throughout all aspects of their lives, without pain, pressure, or peeing their pants. And this is the Balanced Momtality Podcast, where we will talk about all things pelvic floor, your core, and optimizing your pregnancy, birth, and postpartum recovery, providing you with the knowledge and tools so that you can feel like the strong, playful, and happy mom that you and your family deserve. Now let's get you out of those pads and back to loving movement. Fill up your water, pop in those AirPods, roll out your mat, and let's connect. Before we start today's episode, just a quick disclaimer that anything mentioned in this podcast is not meant to treat or diagnose any medical conditions. If you have any questions or concerns about your healthcare needs, please seek the care of your medical provider. This is also a safe space where we will be talking about very sensitive but important topics, such as issues with peeing and pooping, relationships, and even sex. So if you have littles around, probably a good idea to pop those AirPods in. But otherwise, I hope you enjoy today's episode. All right. We are here with Ashley Fillmore with the Cheers to Your Success podcast. And I am so excited that Ashley took the time out to chat with you guys today because she is just a wealth of knowledge with over 20 years coaching experience working with women in the health and wellness world. And so we overlap a lot with our passions and our skill set. And I just know that she's going to give you guys such good information today on mindset. We are tapping into mindset today. And so I'm going to just let Ashley do a little introduction. I'm really curious, honestly, what got you inspired and what started you in the women's health and wellness world?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me on your show today. I'm so excited to be here. And I actually just had you on my podcast as well. And you are a wealth of knowledge as well. So I just want to highlight that. Mm-hmm. And I'm, again, just so grateful to be here and chat with your community. So When I started my career, I actually thought that at first I wanted to go into more of the treatment side of helping people. But then as I was going through my undergrad, I realized really quickly that I wanted to be on the preventative side. And so it started off in personal training and just being a nutrition coach, which was great. But I realized that there were also a lot of limitations with just that. And so I went on to get advanced certifications in hormonal and metabolic health because I really wanted to get to the root cause and help women feel better. And I knew that it was so much more than eat less and guess what, move more, which is what we were all told and taught, and especially if you buy into diet programs. And so I wanted to dig deeper because I really started to see with my clients early on that that wasn't sustainable. Eating less and moving more, that formula just simply wasn't working for that 35, 40-year-old mom of two that's working full time. And so I wanted to truly help women, but I knew that I needed to expand my education to do that. And so I went on to get advanced certifications in hormonal and metabolic health. And then here I am now with my company, Metabolic Fix. But to really answer your question, I wanted to be on the preventative side. I wanted to help women really feel better. And I knew that I needed to do that. So in college, I really zoned in on nutrition and exercise. But then after graduating and starting to work full time, I'm like, okay, there's even more to it than just that.
I just love that you saw that there is more to our health than just, movement and nutrition, and really seeing that it is all connected. Because even having my doctorate in physical therapy and feeling like I have this really solid toolbox to help women, there was still just this disconnect of how it all works together. How are the hormones playing a role in your pain, your stress, your healing, your symptoms, your energy, your weight loss, right? How is our metabolism getting affected by all of those things as well? And as we'll touch on today, mindset is also a huge piece of that. So obviously, you're such a wealth of knowledge with hormones and all of those things, and we'll probably touch on that here. But I want to just hear kind of where or why I should say why you feel mindset is such a crucial piece of this health and wellness and being more preventative and proactive in our own health journey.
Yeah, I think it's such a huge part because you can have everything else dialed in from your nutrition to your workouts. Your metabolism is hopefully functioning well and healthy, and hormonally, you're in a great place. But if your mindset is lacking, you're going to find yourself being challenged and maybe even starting over. And a lot of times when I have a client come into my world, especially one that's tried all of the diets, all of the programs, and nothing has worked for them, I do a lot of assessing. But one of the things we also do a lot of work with is the mindset. Really what's going on there? Are you struggling with something? Because we all have things. And one of the other reasons why I feel like mindset is so important is because even with the education and education and knowledge I have, when I started my journey, I actually had a dieting journey, and I very much so was trapped in the all or nothing mindset. And I was a perfectionist and I had to do everything absolutely perfect. And guess what? If I couldn't, then I was a failure. And then that would lead to the nothing. And so doing nothing, I mean. And so it was just this constant starting over, never really making progress. And unfortunately, I did start to see some of those, like just the being a perfectionist all the time, those things showing up in other categories of my life and feeling like, well, if this isn't going to be perfect, then I'm not going to do it at all. Or there was never really any balance. And so I find that mindset is such an important component and something that really is overlooked, because to typically get to the bottom of whatever is holding you back personally, as I like to say, the big elephant in the room, it's going to take a very intimate relationship and getting to know your coach or whomever you're working with. And they are going to support you and help you on your journey to get to the bottom of that. And that takes time. And a lot of programs out there just simply aren't going to dedicate that much time to each individual. So they just take it out altogether. And here's all the other things. Here's your meal plan. Here's your workouts. You just go, you're going to do this and it's going to be great. But guess what? After a couple of weeks or maybe a month, if you can make it that far, you may find yourself starting over. You may find yourself struggling to stay consistent. You may find yourself being hard on yourself, beating yourself up. Why am I not able to do this? I can't check off all the things on the list. And that's why I'm not successful. But the reality is that actually that's just not the way to approach your goals.
It's exactly it. I love that you touched on it and like perfectionism because as someone myself, and again, my practice is the balanced momtality, which stems from mentality. So I love the mindset piece of this. And I also agree that it's just crucial because even if you do have all of your other ducks in a row, if you're not mentally resilient enough or have that positive mindset, and it's not always positive, right? But the tools and stuff to kind of catch that negative spiral, then you are going to catch yourself feeling overwhelmed and hitting burnout, or again, maybe not even starting at all. And so I do feel like there are those kind of separate camps when it comes to mindset around. There's some that have a hard time. They're kind of waiting for motivation to really get going, which we all kind of know motivation comes and goes. So we can't necessarily always rely on having that motivation. But then there's those other camps where I feel like I'm more in that with you, where it's like, I get it in my head. And I like to say I'm a recovering perfectionist. I'm not
Mhm,
even necessarily someone who even thought of being a perfectionist because I'm more
mhm,
kind of laid back. I'm like, it doesn't have to be perfect. But I
mhm,
started noticing it in other parts of my life where I was like, oh, I'm just choosing not to even start that or go there because I already kind of am questioning if I'm going to succeed or not. Will
mhm.
I be able to do it or not? And I've had to catch those in my own healing journey, in my own health and wellness, because it is a mission for me, as is all of my listeners and anyone I work with, to make it a lifestyle. And we can't make it a lifestyle unless it's sustainable. And it's not sustainable if you're going in and trying to eat this super restrictive diet and force yourself through all of these exercises that might not align with you or feel good. And also knowing like what those outcomes are, right? Like what are we looking for as success, and kind of putting the right things in place and having a coach like yourself to help keep you on track, but also kind of be that reality check of you're doing great, right? And it's going to look different week to week. Some weeks you're going to crush it and that's awesome. And other weeks you're not going to crush it, but maybe you still showed up a little bit and that's also awesome, right? Because life is
Right.
all over the place. So I
Exactly.
love that you touched on the perfectionism because I think that's something we all have to just take a reality check and just step back and see, like, are we letting, it's almost a fear, right? Like I've kind of realized that perfectionism is a fear. It's a fear of failure, really. And so
Mhm,
really understanding like, is this uncomfortable sensation and this fear valid? Is it something I feel like I maybe it's not in alignment with how I want to approach the goals, or maybe it is and I'm just afraid. And in that
mhm.
case, we need someone like you who's going to kind of push you through that discomfort and failure. So I'm curious, do you have some more like practical and more realistic strategies of how you would approach mindset? How do you approach mindset with your clients when you're trying to maybe get through some of those hurdles of overwhelm, or even just getting started, or
Mhm.
pushing through after a plateau and things like that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And number one is I truly believe that you need a customized plan or a plan that can be tailored to fit your specific needs. When you have a customized plan that's meeting you where you're at, it is so much more doable and sustainable. And sustainable is really the key word here, because if your plan lacks sustainability, it's going to be impossible for you to keep up with the day to day task. And when that happens, especially if you're like me and you are a recovering perfectionist too, you're going to feel like you're failing. And when you feel like you're failing, it's easy then for that negative spiral to just pick up. And it's like a domino effect. Well, you're not going to do good at this. And then you start to notice your actions shifting. And suddenly you're not getting up for that workout, or you're not eating healthy, because what's the point? But if your plan is number one, sustainable, that is so important. So I work with doctors, surgeons, business owners, moms of 3, 4 children that are also working part time, or some are just stay at home moms, which is a job by itself. I have 2 children and it's a lot of work just with
Mhm.
them without being a business owner. And
Right.
I will say a lot of women, and very understandably so, come into my world with just this anxiety and overwhelm instantly. Well, tell me what I'm going to need to do exactly. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to balance this with my life. And there's just so much going on. And can you remind me, like, how is my eating going to need to be, or how long are my workouts? And I always say, hey, I really want for you to take a deep breath, because we're going to meet you where you're at. This program isn't going to be you keeping up. It's going to be meeting you where you're at. So for your listener listening in right now, Number one is you need a program that is going to be customized and or tailored to meet you where you are. I know I offer this through one-on-one, and I've also offered it through group coaching, which normally you wouldn't think through a group coaching program that you would be able to offer a high level of customization. But if you're working with a coach that has experience and also working with a coach that wants to work with a more smaller, intimate group, then yes, you can still get a ton of customization and potentially even support from other women. But I think for you, it's having that tailored approach. And then from there, you want to make sure that you start with very few actions. And if you are very, just passionate and ready to dive in, you're super motivated at first to start your health goals, or maybe it's to drink more water, you want to get in more steps, or you want to start lifting weights 3 times a week, or you really want to feel great for the holidays, and you want to just focus really hard on your nutrition, potentially track your macros, whatever it is you're doing. It's easy to feel like you want to do everything at once, right? I even feel that way. I'm like, let's just tackle it all. But the reality is that when that excitement starts to wear off because your kids are home sick from school, or unfortunately you have a deadline at work, or you have a business trip coming up, or something else has just kind of came into play, it's challenging to do that. So I suggest starting with 1 to 3 actions. And this is what I prescribe for all of my clients, 1 to 3 key actions. But here's the thing I want for you to hear. The 1 to 3 actions need to be the big dial movers. So let's push the little rocks aside and let's focus on the big rocks. And so the next question may be, well, what are the big rocks then?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of time we are expending our energy on things that aren't moving the dial. And with all of my experience from working hands-on and most of the time one-to-one with clients, is I have really been able to double down on the big dial movements. So number one is going to be, big thing is focusing in on your nutrition. But I want to highlight one thing for a dial mover. Typically, it's going to be making sure you're eating balanced, but specifically enough protein. So for a lot of my women coming in, it's going to be, okay, let's focus in on making sure you're eating enough protein. It's okay if there are a million other things in your nutrition that we want to improve. Maybe you need to drink less wine. Maybe you need to drink more water, eat more veggies. Those are all important, but the protein is going to be huge and have a huge impact on how full you stay between meals, building muscle, recovery, your energy throughout the day. And so right there, let's focus in on your protein. Number 2, your movement. So what are you doing? It is so easy in the course of our day when we're overwhelmed and stressed to do absolutely no movement, forget our workouts, cancel them, not get up and, work out at all because we are tired and stressed. But the movement is key, and what you're doing matters. And so I like to say either walk, and that is wonderful for not only your body composition goals, but your mental health and your physical health, or strength train. And there's a lot of ways you can get started with that. There's a lot of resources available these days to get you started. And so I just want to highlight that. And then I would say if you feel like you could tackle a little bit more, sleep is going to be my next thing, because if you are struggling with your mindset, it is so much harder to do anything well when you're tired. And so I know that it may not feel like a big rock, but it really is. And it is something that's going to set you up for success, or not set you up for success, should I say, if you're not doing it. So those are just some examples of what I would consider to be big dial movers. Mm-hmm. You may think of some others if you're listening in thinking, oh, I already do great on protein, so maybe I need to tap into something else. Well, sure you can. And you don't even need to do 3 things, but I would say 1 to 3, 3 being the max. It becomes so much more doable. In your mind, though, you have to let everything else go. And if you are naturally a perfectionist, this is going to be hard, because you're going to want to do, well, I need to get my steps in. I should be, writing in my gratitude journal every night. I need to be lifting weights 5 days a week and walking 10,000 steps a day. And you can keep going. And so sure, on a great week, like you said, it's easy to knock the things off and we pat ourselves on the back and we feel great. But the reality is a lot of us are going to have those more challenging weeks, but be prepared for that and know that this is a normal part of your journey and that this is okay. And instead of it being a shock or a surprise, throwing you off course all the way, be able to say to yourself, you know what? This is normal. I know that there's going to be challenges or difficult weeks from listening to this podcast or working with a great coach, and I'm ready for that. And so that's when you tap into plan B, and you are okay with doing a little less on those weeks, even if that means normally you're doing 3 dial movers and you just go back to 1 for the more challenging weeks. Always keep your foot through the door, though. That's what I tell my clients. Never let that door close. Life will be challenging at times and you have to step back. That's okay. Just don't close the door because it's so much harder to get started when you close that door.
Yes, so many good things because again, I can't relate to that enough where it's like I don't feel like I'm a perfectionist, but I see it in the areas where I'm trying to do all the things, like even the reset I'm doing right now. That my listeners, on my last podcast episodes, kind of redoing this self care challenge reset through the rest of the year just to get my own mindset in check and kind of re auditing a lot of those things that do keep that energy up and keep me feeling more balanced myself. And those would be my same three movers as well. So those big rocks of making sure nutrition and protein. My listeners know I talk about protein all the time. Protein is huge for strength training and just healing, having enough energy throughout the day. And then obviously too, movement. Are we moving our bodies and hopefully daily? And that's something I was mentioning too, that like I get to the gym 2 to 3 times a week right now. And that's like a solid thing that never really changes, where at this point I'm consistent with that. But also recognizing, right, that like, yeah, that's good. But if the other part of the day I'm just sitting on my butt and the other days I'm just sitting on my butt all day, that's not great. It'd probably be better for me to just do a little walk every single day and just trying to find where we can sneak movement into our day and not be as sedentary. But then again, sleep is a huge one, right? Again, if we don't have good sleep, we're not going to have good energy. We're not going to have the mental clarity to make the good decisions with our food. And those all three compound into our mindset so much because we know this research is backing us, right? Where we eat good, we feel better. If we move our bodies, we feel better. If we sleep good, we feel better. And not just physically, but mentally, we feel better. Those three things combat depression so much. So I just think that it's such a foundational piece that needs to be in play, but can be so overwhelming. So I love that you break it down with just 1 to 2 actions. Let's not do too many things at once because it can just be a lot, where that's kind of what I'm like, let's do this and this and this. And then I'm crashing after a few weeks. And I have to take a step back and remind myself of like, okay, this doesn't mean we're stopping, but let's just repick one thing. And I have this conversation with my patients a lot because they'll come in after like a holiday or a vacation, or they got sick or their kids got sick, right? And they're like, oh, this last week was terrible. I didn't do anything. And I'm like, well, hold up. Let's see. Like, because at this point, I've ingrained enough habits where I think they're at least doing breath work. I'm like, well, were you at least thinking of some of your breathing while you were sitting around? They're like, I did. I'm like, then good job, right? We're not just going to say, well, I didn't hit the 5 days a week where I was supposed to work out, so I failed. I didn't do anything this week. It's like, no, you probably were. And it's a stack. We're building on different habits and different skills. And so initially, you might have weeks where you truly revert back to doing absolutely nothing. But as long as you are, like you said, keeping that foot in the door and having people in your corner to also remotivate you and inspire you to keep going, that's really where we get that solid foundation of consistency and giving that positive feedback that we can do this, right? It's like a trust building process of, oh, I can show up for myself, which is a hard thing to do. And I'm sure you see that a lot working with women of just, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, how it is just so hard to mentally decide that we're going to take the time out of our day to work on our own health and not focus on our kids or our husband or our job or the house or all the other things. And even though we know we need it, it's still so hard to actually do it.
It is.
Do you have some tips and strategies for that? Just, actually getting over those humps, whether it's shit or guilt preventing you or energy or, and I'm sure having a coach like yourself is another obvious great tool to have if you're feeling stuck like that. But I just find it is such a hard mental struggle for us to show up and prioritize ourselves.
Yeah, it really is. And I will say this resonates with me as a mom of two. I have my own business. I work full time. I have my husband, my house, my children, my dog, my business, my clients, and there's so much. And it's so easy to push yourself on the back burner. And I would say, even to your own personal example where you said, oh yeah, I can tackle all of these things and I can do this and I can do this, but it's easy to forget, how does all of that play into the rest of your life? meaning you have your own business, you're a mother, you maybe have a husband and a house and all the things to take care of. We forget that. But that's actually what we need to do. We need to make sure that we are looking at how all of this is going to play into our life, because hopefully your plan is to implement these healthy habits for long term and the rest of your life. So to do that, you have to make this work with your life, and not something that is just kind of your white knuckling your way through, but more so you're finding that balance to where it fits in well. But even with that being said, it's still challenging to do that sometimes. And it's just literally the time to do what you need to do. And so here are some things that I recommend for my clients and things that I actually do on my own for myself on my own time when I'm thinking about my busy schedule. And so I have to prioritize myself first thing in the morning. And so this has actually helped with my sleep. So to do that, I have to get up early enough, because I know when my children need to get up, and when they open their eyes, it is all eyes on them. Even if you have older children, maybe you still need to help. So think about your own life and how this would apply. But for me, I would ideally love to work out later in the day or go on a walk later in the day. But I know once I start my work day and once my kids get up, my time is very much so restricted. And so to do what I need to do and to get in consistent exercise, I do have to get up early. So it starts with saying, okay, what time do I need to get in bed to be able to wake up early? Because a lot of times we'll do this. We'll say, okay, well, I'm going to get up early, but you go to bed at midnight. So when your alarm goes off at 5 a.m., no, you're not ready to get up. You're going to hit snooze. You're going to sleep through that. So you have to say, okay, well, what time do I need to get into bed so I can get at least 7 hours of sleep? So that may cause you, or force you, should I say, to reevaluate your evening routine. What time are you starting to unwind? What time are you putting your phone down? Do you have boundaries in other areas of your life, or are you working until 9 or 10 p.m.? Are your children staying up super late? Are you eating dinner at 10 at night when you should be preparing yourself for sleep and rest? And so it really will force you to look at some of those habits. If it's not easy for you to change that schedule, figure out what you need to do to make that happen, because that's going to impact your hormonal health, your metabolic health, and other categories in your life as well, especially if you're over the age of 35 and you're a woman. And so I would say, number one, try to find that time. For me, it's first thing in the morning. And then I want to also say, it doesn't have to be every day. More is not always better. And so there's this big misconception, specifically when it comes to your fitness and health goals, that you need to exercise 60 minutes a day, 7 days a week, maybe twice a day to even get benefits. And none of that is true. Actually, a lot of times less is better for most of the women I work with. It's about what you do and how you do it and being very smart. And so with what you do, and sometimes you do need a professional to come in and guide you through this journey, because it can be very overwhelming if you don't have experience or education designing programs, creating a plan, designing workout programs, or creating an overall health and wellness plan for yourself. And so it could be 3 days a week. It could be a 15-minute workout. I have clients that do 15-minute workouts 4 days a week, and that's it. And so that is doable for them. Even when life is really hard, they can do that. Or a 30-minute workout 3 days a week or 2 days a week. And so maybe that bar is too high. You need to lower that bar and make it more doable. But sometimes you need an expert to come in and say, hey, this is actually okay. I'm going to give you permission to do less, because actually less would be better for you. And then another tip I want to share is you can find fun ways to work in more activity too. And so you may not be able to go for a walk every day, but could you park your car in the back of the parking lot instead of the front? Could you take the stairs instead of the elevator? Could you walk around your block in the evening with your family after dinner? Could you potentially go on a 15 or 30-minute walk during your lunch break? Could you take a meeting on your phone? Put your headphones in if you don't have to have video on and get your steps in. So sometimes you do have to get creative, maybe a walking desk or a walking pad, whatever it may be for you. But don't forget about those little pockets of time that you can work in. Okay, well, I can't go on a 45-minute walk, but can you take the stairs? Can you potentially even walk up and down the stairs in your own house if you have stairs? Could you walk around your office or walk around the block? Those little things have helped a lot too. So I think just look for those little pockets of time or windows of opportunity to do things for yourself. And don't forget to utilize your weekends. If you are a working mom, your weekends are key if you're off on the weekends. So could you take an hour out of your Sunday or Saturday to food prep and make healthy food for yourself. So it is easy and you can just grab things and go during the week and you're not feeling like you need to stand over the stove every night. So just planning ahead and actually thinking about your week ahead and what you can do to set yourself up for success is probably the most important tip when it comes to you being successful. So thinking about, when am I going to do that workout? Is it in the morning, even though I don't like to get up, or is it maybe at my lunch break or after I get home from work? Do I have healthy foods on hand? Well, no, I don't. Okay, well, when can you make time to get that in? Okay, well, I'm off on the weekend. So make it fun. Go grocery shopping, listen to your favorite music, jam to my podcast or your podcast, and make it a fun session, and even get your family involved and, set yourself up for success in that way.
I love all of this because it is something I'm so passionate about, working with my patients and trying to tailor that so it is doable, right? That sustainability is key so that you can show up consistently, because that's where we're going to really make lifelong health habits and generational health habits. Having our kids seeing these changes and being a part of seeing the emphasis and priority put on our health and wellness, what we're eating, what we're moving, how we're spending our time. And like you said, even 10 or 15 minutes counts. Anything is better than nothing. And I do have so many women coming into my community, especially really athletic driven women who feel like that isn't enough, right? That's where they have that like, oh, I just can't get to the gym anymore. Like, well, hey, that's fine, because guess what? I'm going to give you permission to just work out in the morning for 15 to 20 minutes. And that's totally okay. Maybe we put a loop band around your thighs while you're cooking in the kitchen in the evening, and we're getting some sneaky squats and some lateral hip abduction there, right? There's a lot of places that we can fit stuff in, and it doesn't have to just be this big daunting thing. I have a lot of women saying that I don't like exercise. Like, that was never me. And it's just kind of shifting that mindset around, movement is medicine, and it's just finding what type of movement you enjoy. And it doesn't have to be thought as this rigorous, crazy exercise routine, and we can make it fun. And that's where people like you and I come in. And so I'm just so glad that you took the time to hop on my show and help my listeners just hear more about the importance of mindset and how much it really does play a role in our progress. And especially if you find that you are hitting a plateau or crashing and restarting regularly, it sounds like having someone like Ashley in your corner would be really helpful for you. So again, thank you so much, Ashley. I'm sure we could talk so much. I'll probably have you back on, because even just, the hormones and the metabolism, there's a lot we didn't touch on today that I know my listeners would benefit from. But I would just love if you could tell my listeners a little bit more about what services you offer, where can they find you if they're interested and want to know more.
Yeah, so I'm always hanging out on Instagram, and you can find me at Ashley_Fillmore1. And I have a podcast as well, which I release on weekly. Cheers to your success. And my website, I'm always there if you're interested in my services. I offer one-on-one coaching, group coaching, as well as I have a app where you could just subscribe to. You get monthly workouts, community. It's all uploaded through my app. It's super affordable, and it's a really great place if you're looking to start with really great science-based workouts designed by me, a professional with a lot of experience. And it just takes literally the heavy lifting away from you. And you can just open the app and do your workout in the comfort of your home or at a gym if you prefer. So that's really the programs I offer and where I'm hanging out. But thank you so much for having me on your show today.
Yeah, so fun. And I love it because it really is the decision fatigue. I think that that's such, it's that underlying overwhelm in motherhood, especially, is that decision fatigue. So having programs tailored to you, that guesswork is taken out. You just got to open it and show up, taking those barriers away. So awesome. Thank you so much for all you do, empowering women and educating women to be healthier and live better lives. Just so fun to have you here, and we will chat again soon.
Okay, thank you so much.
Well, that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day. I know you've got so many other important things going on, but I hope it was helpful and you leave here with some tools to help you in your healing journey. And I just want to ask you, if you have found this helpful, to please leave a review on iTunes. Scroll down to the bottom of my podcast page and leave that 5-star review so it can help other women see this information. And also, if you want to be a part of my community of amazing women trying to balance all the things, great tips and insight and sharing stories and just motivating each other along the way, feel free to join my Facebook group, The Balanced Momtality Wellness and Support. I hope to see you here next time on the Balanced Momtality Podcast.